So it's about 6:30 on a Sunday morning. We're headed to the shop to continue putting the MGA back together. We are about, I think it's 21 days till the car has to go in the trailer to go to El Mirage, which sounds like we have plenty of time, but we've got customer cars in the shop that I have to work on, so just nights and weekends I get to work on the MGA, and we've been thrashing on it for the past few months, getting everything corrected and repaired as best as we can from our spins last year, and working on some new technology to help us monitor the car and make improvements where needed. And we can use this real data to help hopefully make the car more stable if we're still having stability issues. So that's the plan for today. We're going to hit the shop, go in, hopefully start putting more of the interior sheet metal back in now that we've got all of the wiring and the new Haltech data logging system put in. So things can start going back together, and hopefully for the last time before we get ready to put it in the box and head west to California. Last year was our first year racing the MGA. I'll get into the history on that car here later on in this episode, but we took it to the May El Mirage meet, and our first shakedown run was about 150 mile an hour, and we kind of pushed a little bit harder, and that's where we encountered our first spin due to aerodynamic instability. So when we brought the car home before Bonneville, we ended up changing the caster and a few other things, and it helped a little bit, but not where it needed to be. And that's what we've been working on since Bonneville, because we had 2 more spins at Bonneville, and the last spin kind of pushed us off course, and we went out into the crunchy bits, and it kind of damaged the car. So not only did we have to work on getting the car more stable, I had to do some repairs to the belly pans, the exhaust. We had to put a new oil pan on. There's a big mess to clean up, and just straightening out a lot of the underside of the car that was damaged. So that's been an additional workload that's been put on the car. And once we get in the shop, I can show you guys some of the work that we've been doing, some of the improvements. A lot of it as well has been to make the car more serviceable. It's a very tough car to work on due to it being a small car with a lot of stuff packed in there, and some of the way some of it was built wasn't really maintenance friendly, or keeping repairing and maintenance in the back of their mind. So we're kind of fixing some of that stuff as we get into those situations. So that's kind of where we are, and I'll show you the car, walk around it, and keep you guys up to date, as well as give you a little bit of history on where the car was built and why it exists. So what are we looking at with this project? This is a 1961 MGA land speed car. It's powered by a supercharged Coyote with a 6-speed manual transmission, and there's not a lot that's really stock about it, other than the chassis, the body, the wheelbase, and then it's been modified into a race car. I'm not gonna do a deep dive into the total history on the car because I don't know everything there is to know about it, since I didn't design and build the car, and I don't want this to get too long and drawn out and end up being kind of a boring docuseries. This is just to get you introduced to the car, our program, and kind of where we're moving forward for this upcoming race season. This car was originally designed and built in the UK by Colin Walker and David Chapman. Colin had brought the car over from the UK to start racing at the Bonneville Salt Flats in 2014. I don't know all of the speeds they ran because I don't have all the ID tags and the timing slips and all of that stuff. So I don't really know fully where they were, but they raced from 2014 up until 2018, I think, is when they had a clutch failure. It might have been 2019. I don't have all of that information. I am told that the car did hit 200 once at Bonneville and then had a spinning issue after it reached that speed, which that kind of makes sense, but we'll get into that here in a few minutes. After the clutch issue, the car sat for a few years, and with COVID and other things going on in the world and in life, the car just sat at my buddy's shop, Kiwi Steve, out in Brea, California. So I had seen the car, I think 3 years ago, so we'll just say 2023 for argument's sake. I went out to the Grand National Roadster Show as a spectator, and I went over to Kiwi Steve's shop and saw a car under a sheet of plastic, and I kind of asked him what it was, and he peeled the plastic up, and it was a green MGA. And for some reason, the color kind of spoke to me, and I saw it from the back of the car first. So the color and the profile of the wing and the roll cage, obviously I knew it was a race car. Kiwi Steve is heavily involved with the SCTA, so I knew it was a land speed car. And I was just asking about it, and he told me that he was storing it for Colin until he could get things put back together and come back over and continue racing the car. And we uncovered it just to look at it, and then he pulled the hood, and it showed the supercharged Coyote, which was kind of shocking because that's not really what you expect to see in an MGA. So I instantly fell in love with the car. And while we were there, I just told Steve, if Colin were to ever decide to sell this car, let me know because I might be interested. So that was kind of the end of the discussion at that point. And I think a couple months later, Kiwi reached out and just said, hey, I was talking to Colin and he might be interested in selling the car. And kind of the negotiation or the light talks just about interest had began. And it kind of went on for a year and a half or so before things got serious. And Colin had made me an offer that was pretty much impossible to refuse. So I ended up purchasing the car from Colin last year, 2025, and about, I think April is when I ended up paying for the car. Before I'd paid for it, I'd actually went out and helped Kiwi do some work on it because I knew I was going to buy it, and the deal had been struck. I was just waiting on some funds to come through to actually wire that money over to Colin. I went out and we started working on it a little bit here and there. I would fly out for a long weekend and get a little bit of work done. El Mirage Spring Opener was approaching, which is usually the first or second weekend in May. I decided I was going to drive out 3 days early, and I was going to hit it hard at Kiwi's shop, get the car fully put back together, because at this point, the transmission had been out, drive shaft had been out, it hasn't been ran in 5 or 6 years. We just had to go through all the systems. But I had been buying things that I needed, like new seat belts, new fire bottles, that kind of stuff, getting everything ready. So when I had went out a few days early, our crew chief, Tom Stewart, had come down. We pulled the car out, all the parts, and we reassembled the car with the help of some of Kiwi's friends and Kiwi himself in his parking lot in Brea, California, right before El Mirage. After a couple quick rips down the street just to get a feel for the car, we loaded it up in the trailer, and the next morning we drove from Brea to El Mirage Dry Lake Bed. And we got the car out. I did a couple light practice runs, nothing under extreme power, just again to kind of get a feel for what the car felt like, especially being fully suited up, because the first time I did any kind of driving with it fully suited was there at El Mirage, and it was just maybe an 80-mile-an-hour run to make sure that everything felt good. We didn't have any weird vibrations at speed or anything we were concerned about. And that was pretty much my first experience in the car, and we were there to race. So that was my first experience driving the car there at the El Mirage Dry Lake Bed, and we had just put a car back together in a few days and took it straight to a race event. So the next day was the actual racing event at El Mirage, and my first shakedown run. I think we ran 158 mile an hour on dirt, and that was just, again, to get more of a feel for the car, how it handled, and kind of what we were looking like as a program. And the car did not handle very well. It was, they call it hunting. It gets in the grooves of the dirt and just wanders around a lot. And that's kind of, it's very an unnerving feeling to be at those kind of speeds and the car being loose. But everybody I talked to and showed them the in-car footage, are like, it's just hunting, it's all right. So just kind of let it do its thing and don't fight it. Just let it move, but keep it on course. So that's what I did on the next run, is what I thought. So I pushed it a little bit harder, and we had hit about 187 mile an hour when the aerodynamic forces kind of did us a disfavor, and we lost traction and we spun the car. So that was the first spin, and that was at El Mirage on my second run. So from there, we had to take the car back to the pit, get it up in the air, clean the tires, and get the car re-inspected to make sure there was no suspension damage, steering damage, or any damage to the tires. And once we did that, we got back in line and made a third run. And this one was another shakedown run. One of the inspectors wanted to follow us down course and get a 150 mile an hour pass and then watch to see if the car was doing anything weird or to make sure that I could handle the car. So that was our first 3 passes, and we ended up leaving the car in California and flying home. And we were going to come back and run June, which was just 3 weeks later. Went back. We tried a few different things like changing tire diameter and trying different driving techniques, but the car handled the same. Luckily this time we didn't spin, because now I kind of knew what that felt like when it was approaching the point of a spin. So we never got going that fast, but we came up with a game plan for Bonneville, which was in August. Brought the car home from El Mirage, got it up in the air, and one of the biggest things we thought could be a factor was it didn't have enough caster for a land speed car. So we had taken the front lower control arms off, made new brackets, pushed the control arms forward to get as much caster in the car as we could. We added some weight to it and just a once-over on the car, because we didn't want to get too deep in the weeds the first time and change a bunch of stuff and not know if something fixed it or made it worse. So land speed cars, it's better to change 1 or 2 things, go drive the car, change 1 or 2 things, drive the car. That way you can track where the improvements are and where the improvements need to be. Went to Bonneville, and kind of the same thing. We did a bunch of shakedown runs on the rookie course, and it just didn't feel all that great. It moved around a lot, especially at the higher speeds. And I think we made 5 or 6 runs on the rookie course while we were licensing up. Once we got to 175 by the 2 1/4, we could qualify for the long course. And there we could really put some power to it and see what it wanted to do. So that's what we did, and we spun. This one was about at 193 mile an hour. Same thing it did at El Mirage. It's kind of unsuspected. You can feel it getting a little loose, but it still feels like it's hunting, and then all of a sudden it just came around. So again, we had to go back to the pit, jack it up, inspect everything, and then we got back in for another run. So the next day, when we went to go do another run, we're gonna try a little bit different driving technique. The first spin run at Bonneville, I was very aggressive on the throttle and just pumping up the speed kind of as fast as we can. So this one, we kind of a little bit slower off the roll, took it easy. We were going to use the whole 5 miles of the course. Just use everything we can and see what the car will do. Again, this is still in the figuring things out phase, because this is the first season I've driven the car, and I feel the MGA program had just never been fully worked through and kind of got all the bugs worked out. So that's still what we were working on. It was very kind of strange on that run where I was taking it easier off the line and just easing into it. Everything felt a lot more stable. It didn't feel as loose. It didn't feel out of control. And then I hit like the 175 mark, and the car kind of did this wiggle. And I reached over to put my hand over the parachute, to pull the parachute if I got sideways again to straighten me out. And as soon as I got my hand over there, it went away. So I thought we had just pushed through what the aerodynamic issue was. And I felt good, and I continued to push a little bit. And again, right about that 190 mile an hour mark, we lost traction and the car spun again. This one wasn't as fortunate as the first spin. On our first spin, we just spun on course, didn't damage anything. But the second spin at Bonneville, we kind of spun off of course into the crusty bit that's not groomed, and it beat the car up pretty good. It ripped the splitter off, the front belly pan, damaged the oil pan, damaged the exhaust, the radiator, cut a tire, and it was just a mess. So that was pretty much the end of speed week for us as far as racing goes. So we just went back to the pit, loaded everything up, and decided we would hit it hard in preparation for the 2026 season, which is where we are now. So over the winter, we did a lot of thinking on the program and what we needed to do to correct these issues and what we thought was causing the issues. So the biggest thing we thought is when the car was built, it had a limited slip rear end, and we feel that the limited slip rear end was causing a lot of our issues, as the dirt and the salt don't have a lot of traction. As we were getting up to speed, one wheel would grab and then lose traction, the other wheel would grab, and it would get us in this penduluming motion. And that could be what I felt kind of as it wanting to hunt, is we were just losing traction and going back and forth on the back wheel. So we wanted to take that limited slip differential out and put an open differential in, which opened up a whole new can of worms that I'll get to. And we wanted to move our weight bias back. We had set it at 45-55 to 55% on the back. We wanted to get closer to 60 on the rear, just to counteract any frontal downforce we're getting at speed, which can be seen in the videos by the hood and the cowl section being pushed down from the aerodynamic forces of the air coming up over the front of the car. So those were some of our major tasks we needed to do, other than just basic repairs from the spin damage. And like all things on race cars, changing one thing changes a lot of things. So the car has a 9-inch rear axle housing, but it has a strange engineering 12-bolt drop-in, which is good for reducing parasitic loss in the rear end. But it had 33 spline axles because it had the limited slip. Open differentials for GM are 31 spline. So then we had to get new axles made, which isn't the biggest deal, but that's more expense, more time. And then we had to track down the ring and pinion gear that we wanted and an open carrier. And open carriers for GM stuff is not very popular. A lot of times it gets thrown away. And we had to find the right series for our strange engineering drop-in. So all of that stuff added up, and it actually took quite a bit of time. I think total to track down the parts, get everything made, and ready to go back in was like a month to a month and a half, maybe a little bit longer. So that was very labor and time intensive. And then the weight, finding places to add weight. I think we ended up adding 600 or 700 more pounds to the car and moving that towards the back to get the bias we want. And all keeping in mind where the center of pressure and the center of gravity are. We can't just stack a bunch of weight in the back and hope for the best. We have to make sure that we keep the CP and the CG balanced to where it's not more aerodynamically unstable and prone to turning around. Again, a lot of things to think about when doing that. And from there, new exhaust, making new belly pans. I had to get a new radiator built and installed, and a lot of little stuff like that. We wanted to be able to put an ice water system in for the supercharger intercooler. So we had to move the fire suppression bottles to the trunk, make new lines, all new cables, pass-throughs, brackets, and then we could put in the new water system, which surprisingly the water system was one of the easiest parts of season prep this year. Just getting a 15-gallon ice water tank put in the car, and that should help give us a little bit more power, and that water will help give us a little bit more ballast kind of towards the car and keep everything balanced where we want it. And I think one of the greatest additions this year that's going to help us monitor where everything is going on aerodynamically and tire slippage is we teamed up with Haltech, and they came up and helped us with a digital dash and data logging system. So now we have an accurate way to monitor everything. Before, it had a data logger system, but we could never get consistent results out of the logger. So we got everything new: wheel speed, drive shaft speed, GPS, and we've got suspension sensors so we can monitor how much each wheel is traveling, and that'll help us calculate pitch, roll, and yaw, as well as downforce and lift on the front and back. So hopefully all of these things will help us monitor what the car is doing better and have better results so that we can accurately make adjustments as need be. And that's where we stand right now with the car behind me. It's getting closer every day, and it won't be long before we are putting it in the trailer to head to El Mirage.